The Snedeker family had been through a lot in the past few months. Their eldest son, Matt, had been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and the family had to make the tough decision to move to Connecticut to be closer to his doctors. The move was also a financial decision, as they needed to save money on medical expenses. So when they found a large home in Southington, Connecticut that could accommodate their family of 8, they didn't hesitate to sign the lease. Carmen and Alan Snedeker, along with their 3 sons, daughter, and 2 nieces, were excited to start their new life in Connecticut. The home was a beautiful Victorian-style house with a large backyard and plenty of space for the children to play. However, their excitement quickly turned into fear when they discovered the truth about their new home. As they were unpacking their belongings, Carmen stumbled upon a locked door in the basement. Curiosity got the best of her, and she asked the landlord for the key. The landlord hesitated before reluctantly handing over the key, warning them that the room had been sealed off for a reason. Despite the warning, Carmen and Alan opened the door to find a room filled with old funeral equipment and furniture.
What the hell?
The walls were stained with blood and the air was thick with a musty smell. It was evident that the house had once been a funeral parlor. The Snedekers were horrified by the discovery, but they had already signed the lease and didn't have the means to find a new home. They decided to make the best of the situation and tried to ignore the eerie feeling that lingered in the house. However, strange things started happening soon after they moved in. The children would complain of seeing shadows and hearing whispers in the night. Objects would move on their own and doors would slam shut without any explanation. The family tried to brush it off as their imagination, but deep down they knew something was not right in their new home. One night, as Carmen was tucking her daughter into bed, she noticed a dark figure standing in the corner of the room. She quickly turned on the light, but the figure was gone. She tried to convince herself that it was just her tired mind playing tricks on her, but she couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. As the days went by, the paranormal activity only intensified. The children became more and more scared, refusing to sleep in their own rooms. Matt's health also took a turn for the worse, despite being closer to his doctors. The family started to believe that the house was to blame for all their misfortunes. One night, as Alan was working late, Carmen decided to do some research on the history of their home. She discovered that the funeral parlor had been owned by a man named Jonah, who was known for his cruel and sadistic ways. It was rumored that he had performed rituals and sacrifices in the basement of the house. Carmen's blood ran cold as she realized that their home was not just haunted, but cursed. She knew they had to leave immediately, but they were trapped. The house seemed to have a hold on them, not allowing them to leave. The family's fear and desperation only grew as they tried to find a way out. They contacted a local priest, who performed an exorcism on the house, but it only seemed to anger the spirits even more. The children were constantly tormented by nightmares and the family was on edge, never feeling safe in their own home. One day, while the family was out, Alan decided to investigate the basement further. He found a hidden room behind a false wall, filled with even more disturbing items. As he was looking around, he felt a cold hand on his shoulder and turned around to see the ghostly figure of Jonah standing behind him. Alan ran out of the room, never looking back. The Snedekers knew they had to leave the house, but they were running out of options. They couldn't afford to break the lease and they couldn't find anyone who would rent the house. They were trapped in a nightmare that seemed to have no end. As a last resort, they reached out to renowned paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens were shocked by the level of activity in the house and immediately started their investigation. They discovered that the spirits in the house were not only the victims of Jonah's rituals but also his accomplices. After a long and intense battle, the Warrens were able to cleanse the house and free the Snedeker family from its grasp. The family moved out of the house, never looking back. Matt's health also improved miraculously after leaving the house. The Snedekers were hesitant to speak publicly about their experience in the funeral parlor home, but the story of their haunting spread like wildfire. The memories and horrors of their time there would haunt the family forever. The Snedekers learned a valuable lesson about the dangers of ignoring warning signs and the consequences of choosing financial convenience over their own safety. They would never forget the terrifying and horrifying experience they had in that house in Southington, Connecticut.